Good day, fellow students, instructors, professors. My name is Nathan, and today we are talking about classroom assessment techniques. In this video, we are focusing on a classroom assessment technique from a handbook for college teachers by Angelo and Cross, known as the word journal. In this classroom assessment technique, students will summarize a short text in a single word. They will then explain that word in one or two paragraphs and include reasons to defend their choice. Before moving on, let's talk about what classroom assessment techniques are. According to Angelo and Cross from their book Classroom Assessment Techniques, a handbook for college teachers, the central purpose of classroom assessment is to empower both teachers and their students to improve the quality of learning in the classroom. Classroom assessment techniques are designed to help teachers find out what students are learning in the classroom and how well they are learning it. Now, when we are talking about classroom assessment techniques, we are talking about formative assessment, that being assessment that takes place during the class rather than at the end, like at a test. Angelo and Cross also add that formative assessment's purpose is to improve the quality of student learning, not to provide evidence for evaluation or grading students. The aim is to provide faculty with the information on what, how much, and how well students are learning in order to help them better prepare to succeed, both on the subsequent graded evaluations and in the world beyond the classroom. What is the purpose of evaluation? According to The Art of Evaluation by Fenwick and Parson, the most common purpose of evaluation is to compare learning progress to learning goals. It is to help students make decisions about how they should proceed. Do you need more study, more practice in a certain area? It is also to monitor an individual student's progress along the learning journey. The word journal is a fantastic tool for teachers to have in their toolbox. It's a useful assessment tool to help improve and assess several related skills, focusing on the student's ability to read carefully and to understand what they are reading, their creativity in deciding what word to use to summarize what they had just read, and their ability to explain and defend why they chose that word. With practice, students will develop the ability to write highly condensed summations and to chunk large amounts of information for more effective storage in long-term memory. Using this technique, teachers will assess and improve several related skills. The student's ability to read carefully and to understand what they read. Their level of skill and creativity in what word they chose to summarize what they read, and to assess their ability to defend and explain why they chose that word. So when is a great time to use the word journal? This tool is fantastic to use when students are expected to read something thoroughly and carefully, to understand a larger picture or underlining concepts. This also works especially well in courses that focus primarily on text rather than textbooks. It's a technique that can be adapted for courses such as literature or anthropology, criminal justice, sociology, history, management, and law. Due to the extreme summation required in this particular classroom assessment technique, it is best used in short texts such as essays, poems, short stories, short articles, and case studies. It's also important to note that the text must have multiple means for interpretation. The step-by-step procedure as outlined by Angelo and Cross contains 5 main steps. Step 1. Choose the text you will assign your students to read. Step 2. Decide what aspect of the reading you would like your students to focus on. For example, perhaps the focus could be on the main theme of the writing, or a central conflict or problem. Perhaps there's a core metaphor that they could focus on. Step 3. Determine if your exercise is feasible and productive. Try following your own directions first. Step 4. If you found the word journal to be useful and thought-provoking, then you can prepare one for your lesson plan. Step 5. The last and final step. Prepare your students by explaining that the word is less important than the quality of the explanation used to defend that choice. Be sure to include some ideas or examples as to what their explanation should contain. Also, be sure to reiterate that the word that they choose must be connected to their reading. To really maximize the usefulness of this classroom assessment technique, it's important to keep a few best practices in mind. Before collecting your students' responses to the word journal, be sure to write a list of reasonable summary words yourself. You will also want to jot down some notes of the kinds of arguments and analysis you hope your students will offer in defense of their word choice. After collecting the assignments and reading through the word journals, be sure to make notes of words that are used more than once, or related terms or common themes that are repeated. Be sure to pay close attention to the reasoning and justifications your students use in their word choices. If and when possible, be sure to categorize the journals not only by what word they use, but their explanations as well. After analyzing the journals, select 3 or 4 examples that you can share with the class that have different perspectives. Take a few moments to discuss some of the differences in opinions or approaches to the assignment. There are many related teaching goals associated to this classroom assessment technique, beginning with developing the ability to synthesize and integrate information and ideas, the ability to think holistically, to improve memory skills, listening skills, reading skills, to develop appropriate study skills, strategies, and habits, to prepare for transfer or graduate study, to develop the ability to perform skillfully, and develop the capacity to think for oneself. There are a few limitations to consider before choosing to use a word journal in your classroom. It's important to note that a word journal takes time and energy to prepare, carry out, analyze, and discuss. In addition, the central goal of the course should be surrounding the development of reading and summarizing. Unless there is time and opportunity for students to discuss and compare their responses, the benefit is relatively little from this assessment. Given the importance of discussion, it is very difficult to ensure the anonymity of student responses to the word journal. Here are some of the great benefits to the word journal. Require students to read deeply and to construct meaning from what they've read, thereby promoting active learning through reading. The experience of choosing a single word to sum up a reading and then explaining and advocating for that word encourages students to make personal connections with the text they are reading and to take responsibility for their ideas. And of course, this classroom assessment technique helps students develop skills in summarizing, remembering, and communicating information, skills that they can use in academic and professional life. When students are free to explore their own creativity and express their own interpretations, the results are far better. It is also very important to note that students who have never practiced this type of reading and summarizing may find the task very difficult and challenging. Be very mindful of those students as they are likely to resist using the word journal. As you know, every classroom is different, so it's important to be able to, as instructors, adapt or extend our classroom assessment techniques. Here's a few ideas to help you get started. For instance, maybe your classroom is having a difficult time embracing this technique. Take time to work with students to develop the criteria for judging the word journals. As a group, come up with a list of qualities that characterize an excellent response. Do a focused word journal by directing students to summarize one aspect of the text, perhaps the central problem or issue, or the main conflict, theme, or underlining metaphor in the reading. Another method is to divide the class into pairs or small groups and ask students to read each other's word journals and analyze the strengths and weaknesses of each individual approach. Provide a list of possible words to summarize the text. Their task then would be to choose a word and explain why they chose that word. And lastly, it's important to remember that as a teacher, you need to practice self-assessment as well. According to Dr. Craig A. Mertler, the author of Classroom Assessment, A Practical Guide for Educators, classroom teachers engage in the process of assessment in order to help assess, evaluate, make decisions, and alterations as needed for their own assessments. He goes on to say that reflecting on what you did and how well you did it are extremely important aspects of being a good teacher. My name is Nathan, and this has been a Classroom Assessment Technique, a word journal from the Handbook for College Teachers by Angelo and Cross. Thank you for watching.